Hello, hello, hello. Thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of Let's Talk About Relationships. It's me, Stephanie K. I am a certified life and relationship coach. And if you guys have been watching, I have been doing some shows for about a month or so now where I bring on different guests and we talk about different aspects of relationships in terms of dating. A couple of weeks ago, I did something about loneliness with Dr. Reverend James Tand. And last week we had Dee Woods who talked about tips for dating. And so I thought that to follow up with that, what would be great is if, okay, now we find the person that we want to be with. And so now how do we prepare for actually being married? And so for that, I brought some old friends on that I haven't seen in quite a while, but I'm really happy to have you guys here. Eric and Courtney Powell. Am I saying you guys' last name right?
Yes, you are.
Okay, and they are ministers and also have a marriage ministry and are marriage coaches. Do you guys call yourself life coaches or dating coaches or marriage coaches? Like, what is the title that you have there for your coaching?
You want to answer that?
Well, we call ourselves marriage readiness coaches.
Marriage readiness coaches. Okay, I know there's so many different types of coaches. And the industry itself is like exploding. So you always need to ask people what exactly they specialize in. So I just wanted to clarify that. And so you guys have marriage readiness coaching and you prepare people for different aspects of marriage. And one of those things is getting ready for marriage. And so if you guys want to kind of introduce yourselves a little bit, tell people what you do, who you are, so they'll have some idea of the perspective you'll be speaking from, then we can go ahead and jump into the conversation.
Sounds like a plan. Well, again, I'm Eric Powell. I'm actually, my wife and I, we are Connect pastors at Wheaton Christian Center. And one of our goals is to allow people to connect with the ministry, to fellowship and just to get to know each other. But one of our main focus areas is marriage and marriage readiness. We work with a lot of couples that are engaged or want to get married, and just people just want to find their way into marriage. And so we provide some tools and some resources and to help them walk through that process so that they can, our whole goal is so they can be happy and successful in the Lord, so they can have a happy marriage and stay in love for life. Exactly. is our goal.
Yeah, yeah. Courtney?
Well, Eric and I have been married for 25 years. And so a lot of the stuff, well, probably all of the stuff that we share with the couples that we coach is, things that we have encountered, what we've learned on our own journey. And because, we are Christ followers, one of the things that I like to say is I can't tell you anything outside of the word and what we've learned as we've been walking this journey out. So we enjoy what we do. We enjoy helping couples, and we certainly enjoy helping people avoid some of the pitfalls and the landmines that we've stepped in, before we were married, as we were individuals trying to find our way. And then after we've been married, how we've allowed the Bible to be our absolute standard. And how we've used that as we've gone on our marriage journey. So we just like sharing that kind of stuff with people.
Yeah, yeah. And, you guys, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the fact that I do have some books out there. And so I have a series of books, and the title of them are called God, Why Am I Not Married? 9 Reasons You Might Still Be Single. And what I have found, because the book kind of explores 9 different reasons why someone's prayers for a spouse might not be getting answered. But the unique thing about the book is that although it's geared towards single people, those same reasons that can stop you from getting a spouse can also become a problem in marriage if you do get married and still have those problems. And so although the topic that I think we'll be talking about today is directed towards single people, I'm sure married people can learn something from it as well. So I'm interested in seeing what you guys are going to talk about. And so you guys go ahead. So, do you guys have like a list of tips, or like, how do you guys usually approach this topic?
Yeah, we almost take every couple differently, but it depends on where they are. So sometimes we take them through an assessment just to kind of gauge, especially if a couples are really serious about getting married and they're engaged and they want to proceed. We have them go through an assessment just to really flesh out some things in their background. The more things you flesh out, the more things you talk about ahead of time, the less issues you'll have down the road. It's usually those things that have never been discussed, never talked about, never worked through, not on the same page, that they sooner or later they're going to pop up. And if you don't know how to deal with them and how to communicate and work through those, trouble is coming. And so we try to flush out as many of those things as possible, and at least give them the tools so that when they are going through whatever it may be, they can navigate through those rough waters. Because we've seen when they don't, we see what happens.
Exactly. And so what is one of the, I guess one of the first things that you like, because I know like you're saying it's going to be different for different people, but what is one of the main things like you want to kind of highlight today?
Well, I would say there are unspoken expectations that each person comes into the relationship with. And those expectations, sometimes we don't even understand the totality of them until we find ourselves in situations and the other person is not acting like we expect them to act.
Yes.
And then we have an issue. And so those expectations, oftentimes they come from how we were raised.
Right.
What we saw in the home. I didn't come from a two-parent home. So my perspective and my expectations were shaped by what I saw happen with my mom and my dad, who they weren't married. My dad wasn't really involved in my life. He didn't live with us. And so I came into the relationship with Eric with some unexpected or unspoken expectations, and he did as well.
Absolutely.
One thing comes to mind. I'll share a quick story. I found out one of the things that he was expecting from me is that I would do what his mom did in terms of remembering family members' birthdays and getting the birthday cards and making sure that they were remembered and getting those cards out and all of that. And I had no idea he was expecting me to do that. I had no idea that was, that was kind of important to him. He saw his mom do that for their family. And for him, it was just an automatic that would be something that I would do. And when he saw me not doing it, it raised a flag, right?
Raised the flag. Someone came out with a book years ago called "Your Wife Is Not Your Mama." So it's coming to that reality, realize that those expectations you may have, you really need to see where did they come from, why do you have those expectations. So it's really knowing about yourself. So you have to be able to deal with yourself, deal with those deep-rooted issues, things that, the way you do whatever you do. Why do you do those things, and why do you think that way? And that's for anything in life. It's not just even marriage. Any relationship, you have to really understand who you are and what sets you off in a certain situation. If you aren't able to dig up those things and understand those things, there's trouble's coming, no matter whether it's a relationship at work or a relationship with your future wife or in a marriage situation, whatever it is. But you've got to really begin to dig out, why am I the way I am? And how did I get this way? Is it okay?
Yeah.
So you have to really deal with those hard issues. And we really try to flush it out with couples to dig deep, talk about these things, flesh this stuff out, and talk through them, because it's when you don't, like you said, you have those expectations. I'm watching birthdays go by and those cards are going out, and
it's like
nieces and nephews, what's happening here?
Yeah. And I know sometimes I'm looking away, but I'm actually writing down notes because you guys are saying stuff, and I want to make sure I don't forget what I want to say.
Okay.
But I do think that's one of the things that I try to focus on too, especially with my coaching, because I would say, based on what you guys are saying, that's probably one of the biggest problems is expectations. And we don't understand, a lot of it goes back to the mind and how our mind has been shaped until that point in our lives. And one of the things that marriage does, which I think is what God designed it to do, is to stretch you beyond the experiences that you have had thus far. And marriage is a very intimate, very close relationship that you usually do not have with many people in your life.
Right.
So it really has the ability to really stretch you beyond a lot of other things, a lot of other types of relationships. I mean, having kids stretches you in a different way too. So just like you said, it applies to so many different areas in your life, but marriage, I think, is especially designed to kind of stretch you in a special way. And so there's going to be bumps in the road, because when we have certain expectations, and like you say, it's based on how you're raised and things like that, they're automatically going to become a problem because you are not marrying yourself.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So other people have stuff that they're raised to. And like, even in my situation, my husband is from a different country and a different culture. And we definitely had those same issues where we, had different ideas about stuff. And a lot of times these different ideas is where the problem starts. This how stuff kind of gets out of control. Then people get offended or they're hurt and, things like that. But it really all boils down to that expectation. And so I think it's really good for you guys to deal with people on that and to point that out, because I think that's the root cause of a lot of marriage problems.
Absolutely.
Right.
I happen to believe that the investment in premarital counseling, that's the biggest investment that anybody can make. And even if you're not in a relationship right now, but you're marriage minded as a single, definitely take advantage of that counseling, because you have certain things that you bring to the table. And oftentimes when we're looking to get married, we're so focused on, I want a man that does this, I want somebody that has this, I want somebody that looks like this. And I really think we need to put that on pause for a minute.
Yes, absolutely.
And look at ourselves and find out, what am I bringing to the table? I mean, what is my marriage readiness factor? If it, how marketable am I looking to somebody else that's looking to be married, and really get ourselves ready in, emotionally, spiritually, physically, financially.
Yeah, exactly. One of the things that what stands out to me, what you're saying, is that especially with the coaching and the premarital counseling, is that this is something you really can't do on your own, because if you just keep looking at yourself and me, you think you're fine. Like, you have some people who think they're the pick of the litter, but then when you get somebody else, you find out that all this great stuff that you think about yourself, they don't necessarily think is so great. So I do think it's important to, go outside of yourself to prepare for marriage, and not just create this checklist in your mind.
Right.
I have my credit right and I'm this and I'm that, because you really need that view from someone else's eyes about, the stuff that you need to work on. So that's, to me, is another important part of what you're saying.
Right. And then there's this perspective of counseling and coaches, I don't need that, or that's for other people. And so there's this whole, mindset in society that, especially if you use the word counseling, I don't need counseling, I'm not messed up. I'm not, but you have to really look at it, all the greats have coaches.
Exactly.
Athletes, people in the industry, music industry, whatever it is, they have coaches, and coaches really help them see things that they may not see from their perspective. And so you're right. That's absolutely right. It's so critical that we consider that and focus on that, to realize that they may bring out things you may never think of, or perspective you've not even thought about, that will open your eyes up to, some important things you need to consider.
Yeah. And so with that in mind, my question for you guys is that I've been married for like 14 years, and we did not take premarital counseling, so we had some bumps in there. But to me, it seems that some of this stuff doesn't really come out until you're married. So how do you measure between preparing for a marriage? Because I don't think anything can prepare you totally. So how do you prepare for it beforehand, for the stuff that will come out later that you may not, were aware of? Yeah.
Let me share this. When we were getting engaged and going through marital counseling at our church, we were pretty much told, don't set a date, because we don't know when this marriage counseling is going to end. And so it ended up lasting almost a year.
Oh, wow.
And there were other people in the class, but it was taken through so many things that we would not have thought about. And I think that made the difference in our marriage. It made less bumps in the road. I could still look and say we're still on our honeymoon. We've had less issues because we thought about these things beforehand, before marriage, talked through them, got on the same page, learned how to communicate to each other, so that when you do have those differences of opinions, you know how to communicate that, so that it doesn't become a pressure point and a contention point, and you do your thing, I do mine, and we go off in different directions. But spending that time, like I say, we were like, oh my goodness, we can't set a date. You want to make plans, you want to start lining up the venues and things like that. But we were wise. We said we'll just sit tight in weight, but for us, it made a huge difference in minimizing, because those bumps do come. Life happens. But I think it gave us a better vantage point on how to deal with those things. Had it been rushed through, like a 2-week, 1 month thing, there's a lot more things to be flushed out that we just hadn't thought about discussing. I mean, everything. Everything was on the table. So
and what it allowed us to do was to make space to talk about these issues, because when you meet somebody and your heart is going pitter pat and you got butterflies in your stomach every time you see this person, and they can do no wrong, really, no matter if they bring you something to eat that you don't necessarily like, oftentimes you suck it up and eat it because they brought it to you. You know what I'm saying? If you're seeing that they are habitually late when they come pick you up, for example, we suck it up because we're just so in love.
What? Yes.
Yeah, but there comes a time when, and it's funny, the old Tina Turner song, what's love got to do with it? There comes a point where it's like, okay,
again.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. So to be able to create that space where you really have no pressure, but because these topics are brought up in a premarital counseling session, you explore it during the session, but then you go off,
right,
and then you have a conversation.
Right.
Yeah, you have discussions that oftentimes lead to other discussions, and you can kind of figure out, well, I can remember us having conversations about, when we have kids, when we start a family, well, how many kids do you think you want? I don't necessarily want to work, after the kids come. How do you feel about that? And so you can have those conversations without being in a pressurized situation where, oh my goodness, now you're pregnant, and we need 2 incomes.
Right.
So you need to go right back to work.
Right.
So when you invest in that premarital coaching, that just it really provides you with space, and that's important. Unpressured space to explore all these different things.
Yeah. And it sounds like, again, I didn't take premarital counseling. I'm sure it would have benefited me some, but it sounds like it teaches you how to communicate too. Because that becomes a big problem. A lot of people will say in marriage is communication, but if you're having all these conversations beforehand, whether you are getting to a place of mutual understanding or not, you're learning how to talk to each other and how to talk things out and stuff like that. So that sounds really cool. I should have done it.
But you're right. That's right behind those other issues, dealing with communication. Now, how do I communicate how I feel and what I'm thinking and express, my thoughts and my concerns? You're right. But that's where, marriages fail so often. You're absolutely correct. It's communication. We don't know how to talk to each other. We talk down, we get loud, we walk off, now I don't want to talk to you, for the next week or whatever, so.
Yeah. Well, 2 things before we kind of move on to maybe your next tip or whatever, as far as getting ready. One thing is that I think expectations even play a role with people who kind of shack up, so to speak, or are together before they get married. And then they'll be together for a long time, but then once they get married, it falls apart. And I've heard a lot of people say, well, why are you guys together for 20 years, but then once you get married, it doesn't last for a year or 2 or whatever? And I think expectations has a lot to do with that, because you think that because your expectations change now that marriage has been added to, the agreement, so to speak. But you guys have been together for 20 years. And so nobody is really thinking of actually changing anything. So we're like, well, why do we have to change anything? We already been together. We just made it legal. But really, I think even if subconsciously, your expectations is like, okay, we're married now. Things have to be different. And that's where I think some people clash as far as shacking up and things like that too early. So I wanted to throw that out there. Another thing is something that you said, Courtney, about we say we want this and this and that and that. And I always say, and I even wrote in my book, I don't recall God asking Adam, what kind of wife do you want? He didn't say what kind of shape you want to be, what kind of attitude you want. He didn't ask him that. But we have this idea and to a certain extent, I don't think there's anything wrong with having a preference. But to us, we take it, I think, sometimes to the extreme in thinking that we can just create a checklist and
Mm.
create somebody and just, give them to us like, we're at McDonald's or something like that.
Right.
So I really think that, especially I think, and I'm not a man, so I can't speak for men. I like to kind of stay with what I know. And I know women kind of have this bad in a lot of ways. Like we just want this checklist,
Absolutely.
and then when we get actually a real human being and not a checklist, then it becomes a problem. So
Yeah. But I will tell you this. I always tell people when they're praying for that person that will be their spouse, I tell them, you know what, it's okay to be specific with God.
Yeah.
It's okay. He knows exactly what we need, and he understands our preferences.
Yeah.
And I tell you what, it was so very important to me. I got married older, right? I always thought that, by the time I was 25, I would be married and have a couple kids, and it just did not work out. That's not my story. It didn't work out for me that way. And so I'm glad that it didn't, because I feel like it gave me an opportunity to mature.
Yes.
To be more comfortable with the person that I was, but also I think I would have been a very different wife and mother had I gotten married and had children before I had a strong relationship with the Lord.
Yeah.
That made the entire difference. That changed, that was a world of difference for me. So when we met, I knew I was definitely a different person. But when I prayed, one of the things that was so important for me, because I know me.
Yeah.
I said, Lord, please, I want to find someone that has never been married and has no children. That was very, top of the priority list for me, because I just know me, and there's that whole dynamic that comes along with that I knew I was not ready to deal with.
Yeah.
And I knew it was a tall order, considering, how old I was, late 20s, almost 30. I knew that was a tall order, but God is good. He is faithful, and he knows exactly what we need, and he knows how to make sure the paths intersect.
Yes, he does. Now, when I was single, I had gotten saved and living for the Lord, and found this new church home, and wanted to have a family. I wanted to be married. I saw these families. I said, I want that. And so I could easily, find someone to date, and stuff would just get messed up somehow. And I finally just turned it over and said, well, Lord, you pick the person. My choices have been horrible. I'm going down the wrong path, beat up the wrong alley. I said, you pick the person. I was ready just to even go to my pastor and say, hey, pastor, I'm making poor choices. I want to get married. You find someone for me. I was willing to do. I didn't do that, but I was at that point ready to do that, because when I first found this lovely church home, I met this young lady. We got engaged, went before the pastor, and he pointed the finger of authority at me and said, you're not ready. And in my heart, I knew I wasn't ready. I was a young, immature. I didn't even have a job. I want to get married. How am I going to, take care of someone, when I wasn't getting married? So I had enough sense to listen to him and says, he knows something I don't. So we broke up, and the young lady left the church, but I stayed put, because I said, what they have here, I need this information. I need to grow as a mature man of God. And so I would pray a prayer, but Lord, if I'm looking at the wrong person, don't even let it get to first base. Break it up. Don't let it get anywhere. And I would find myself liking someone, all of a sudden something would break up. And the Lord would remind me of that prayer. Didn't you pray? If it's not the right person, I'm going to break it up. So I had a piece of just waiting for him. And I'm so thankful that I waited for the right one.
Right.
God, so like you say, Adam didn't, he didn't have any input. So I was at that point. I don't want the input, because my input seems to mess up every time.
Right. And I think what you guys are saying is a very good, basically, balance of what I mean, because it's very easy for us to go to one extreme to another. So instead of, in one instance, we don't ask at all. In one instance, we ask too much. But the key is, what both of you guys are saying, even with asking or not asking, is to trust God and follow his leading.
Yes.
Because that is like the most important thing. And so if you get too caught up on your list and you don't trust God's leading, then the list is useless. Or if you're not asking anything, but you're still not trusting God's leading, then you're not asking is kind of pointless,
Right.
in your favor too. So it's important to always make sure you're following God's leading. That's the key thing, because there's always going to be variation in how people do things. But as long as you're following God's leading, he's going to straighten it out. Like,
Right.
you're in both of you guys' situation, even for me, I kind of did what you did, Eric. Is like, I'm tired of picking jerks. Like, God, I said, I would tell God, like, if I meet somebody, I'm going to ask you if that person is for me. If you tell me no, I don't care how much I like him or anything, I'm walking away. And I walked away from about 3 or 4 possible engagements because of that. And again, I'm really, really glad that I did that. So I totally agree with you guys. This is good stuff. This is good stuff.
Yeah, and I had a list. And the beautiful thing is God answered that list in the midst of, but for me trying to select people from that list, I would have messed up. I would have missed it. They might have had some of those things, it might have been some similar things, but it wouldn't have been what God had in store. So
exactly, because even with the list, we are missing a lot of stuff with that list, and God knows. Like, He knows if you don't necessarily need a wife with long hair, that the one with short hair, is the one that's going to get you where you need to go. So just trust God.
So true.
Yes.
You don't have to trust God. Yeah.
Bottom line. Trust God. Yep.
Okay. So what is some other things that you kind of pinpoint with couples as far as getting prepared?
Well, I would say this, and it follows right behind what we're talking about in terms of asking and trusting God. I think you need to pay attention to what your parents and what your very close friends, pay attention to their input when it comes to somebody that you're seriously involved with and you are thinking about being married. If everybody is kind of saying, I'm not sure that's the right guy. I mean, I know you like him and all, but if they're seeing things that you don't see, and they're not coming from a place of jealousy or anything like that, that these people love you and they have your best interest in mind, but they are hesitant in some way, I would say pay attention to that. It doesn't mean that you necessarily have to break things off, but it may mean you need to slow things down.
Yeah, good point. Yeah.
Yeah.
You have anything to add to that, Eric?
That was my situation. With the first time I was engaged, everybody in my family was like, no, but I couldn't see it because I wanted to get married.
Yeah.
But I'm so glad that I had enough sense to go to a pastor, and he told me, you're not ready, and I was able to listen.
Yeah.
But listening to that person that has authority in your life, or those family members, don't discount it, because it may be, like you say, it may mean to slow down, it may mean to stop it, but just do a check.
Yeah.
And see what's really being said.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and so with that, I know a couple of stories of people that I wouldn't necessarily say they didn't listen to those in authority over them, but they didn't listen to God, because they would pray and say, God, is this the person for me? And they would tell me, and I've heard them say that God didn't, but they were so determined. Well, God is, He can fix it. Whatever's wrong, we'll work it out. And they become so desperate to get married that they forge ahead anyway. And it's a small amount of people that I know who've done that, so it's not a lot. But every one of them, they didn't stay married, they got divorced, and it ended really badly. Yeah. And then they say, I should have listened to God. So even with listening to those in authority around you, because God will use those people to let you know that this person is not the best for you. But I would say to take it even a step further, and don't ignore it if God is telling you, like, hey, this person is not for you. Like, some people have different degrees of kind of relationship from God, so they might need to hear from other people, because when it comes directly from God, they might not hear it as well. And that's fine. That's not bad. Everybody has to grow their spiritual ear, so to speak.
Yes.
Don't get so desperate to get married that you just basically, what you guys saying, you start overlooking stuff, you start making excuses for stuff, you start ignoring God, your family, your friends, and everything that's around you that's giving you all these red flags that this is not the person.
Yeah, right. You're so spot on being able to hear from the Lord. When I met Courtney, we met at a singles luncheon, and someone brought her for me to meet, and I was not interested, because matchmaking, I'm like, come on, no. This is all long before the apps and all the stuff they have now. You might put an ad in the singles ad in the paper or something. But they brought her for me to meet, and I met her, and I was still like, okay, yeah, so what, basically. But then we connected and started dating a little bit, and then she wasn't really saved yet.
Not really saved. I was not saved
at
all.
I would hear her
at all.
Wow.
I would hear her language. I'm like, okay, I know better. This is unequally yoked. If there's a definition, this is it.
Wow.
And so we went out a couple times, and then she saw the look on my face, like I guess you were like, what's up with him?
Listen, I thought he was cute, but he was not that cute for me to have to, pull every word of conversation out of him. And, I guess if I had known what was going on in his mind and how I appeared to him, I mean, I thought I was cute. I thought I had it all going on. What's his problem?
Yeah, so we go out, and she goes drive somewhere and goes to some apartment, goes to pick up a coat or something from a previous boyfriend or something. I'm like, what is this? Time out. I know better.
The operative word was X. It was an X. Nothing was going on. I just needed to get my jacket back. I didn't even realize he knew what was up. So do you see how the Lord works? I was just exposed all the way around.
So I was ready to just to end this thing. But in my prayer time, I heard the Lord speak, she's the one I've picked for you.
Wow.
Calm me down, not to break things up, just to go slow and let the Lord work it out. And she ended up getting saved, and and the rest is history. But I was able to hear from the Lord and knew this was the one. So
wow, that is so key. Wow, I like that, because I hear it might just be in this technology world that we have now. I hear so many young people, they kind of have this me attitude and what I want, what I like. And again, like I was saying, that's fine to a certain extent, but you have to let God lead, because God will lead you to somebody you're not paying attention to. You might feel like, well, like what you guys are talking about. I know even with my husband, he was in another country. The thought of us marrying did not even enter my mind. And God told me that I was going to get married before the year was out, but I wasn't even around anybody, but we were communicating long distance. So I did not think that it was him at all. Like, it wasn't in my mind. And then when God finally brought it to my mind, everything just clicked. And I'm like, oh my goodness. Like, I'm looking around, like, where is he? Because I don't see he was already there. He had been my friend for years. Yeah. So, and so awesome. When we listen to God, he definitely does give us those, of course he's God. Like, we're people, he knows, we don't know. So it's best to listen to your father. So yeah.
Come on.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. Yes.
I know there was this one guy at a church I used to go to a while ago, and I used to see him sometimes, and I'm kind of going back a little bit about listening to God, about not forging ahead when he tells you no. We were just sitting next to each other. I rarely talked to him. I would see him around the church, and I kept feeling this urge to ask him if he wanted to get married. Now, I'm married, so how does it look with me asking him, you want to get married? Like, so I was very hesitant to ask him, but then I just finally said, are you looking to get married or something like that? And he was like, well, why did you ask me that? He's like, yeah, like he's been praying about it a lot and it's really bothering him. And why did I ask him that? And I said, I think God wants me to warn you not to just run ahead with what you're trying to do, because you're not, that's not what he has for you. And he was really, really surprised, because he told me later that he was just going to marry the girl. Like, he knew she wasn't saved and all this type of stuff, but he was just going to go ahead and do it anyway because he really wanted to get married. And I kind of, by me stepping out in faith and asking him that question, he stopped, he paused and decided not to go ahead with what he was doing. So,
wow.
That's powerful.
Yeah, so don't just run off, because not have marrying somebody that's unequally yoked, not supposed to be with, can turn into a living nightmare. So you really want to be careful, and really take your right to choose or your opportunity to choose to spend your life with somebody very, very, very seriously, because
Sure.
it's a relationship that can affect the rest of your life. So I just,
Right, right.
yeah,
Absolutely. That is one of the biggest decisions that we will make outside of our decision on how we're going to respond to the gospel.
exactly.
The decision that we make concerning Jesus. I
Yeah,
mean, that is literally life changing. And right behind that is the person you decide to spend the rest of your life with.
yeah,
So, for women, we tend to think that if we see something that is not exactly how we want it, in this person, they're not acting the way we want. Oh, we can change them.
yeah, yeah,
We can change. It'll be okay. They'll change. Once I do this, oh, then they'll understand how important it is. And once
yeah,
they see me do this, and then yeah, they will change.
yeah,
And 9 times out of 10, without the work of the Holy Spirit in the heart of that person,
yes,
we can't change
no,
anybody, and we set ourselves up for years of disappointment
yeah,
and frustration on both sides, because
yeah, exactly.
you're frustrating them because
Yeah,
they don't understand. Well, what is the big deal? I was like this before we got married.
Right, right.
exactly.
Why is this such a an argument now?
Yeah,
So that's really, really important to be on the same page spiritually.
mm,
And if you're not, take the time and just explore that, because some people are okay with, well, yeah, um, my wife or husband, they're not really involved so much in the church, but I am.
mm,
But what about when children come on the scene?
exactly, exactly.
How are you going
Right.
to raise them?
Mm,
I mean, this is the same thing sometimes couples of interfaith couples have to deal with.
mm,
For example, one is a Catholic maybe, and one is a Protestant, or one
yeah,
is a Christian and one is
Jewish.
Jewish.
yeah,
So those are some of the things that you really need to give yourself time to explore and get on the same page before something happens, and then it's the heat of the moment, and then you're in an argument.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So it
You've
really,
invested so many years
yeah.
into stuff. Yeah. So, okay. So we know to follow the Holy Spirit and things like that, and he will kind of lead you and stuff. But what would you guys say are, okay? And you guys also mentioned to make sure you're on the same page spiritually. But are there any other things that you would say are like definite red flags that you really need to like take some steps
Mm.
backwards? Like, can you guys think of anything that you think are like, Courtney
Oh
shaking
yeah.
her head, like, yeah, yeah,
Absolutely. For women, I would say pay close attention to how your guy treats his mother
mm, mm, yeah,
and his elders.
mm,
Pay very close attention to that. Pay
mm,
close attention if his family is primarily women. If his dad isn't in the picture, he
mm,
doesn't have his dad, or he doesn't
Okay.
have a strong father figure
yeah,
in
wow,
his life. If most of the voices in his life are from women, and if they're very strong, opinionated women, I mean, pay attention to that dynamic.
yeah,
Pay
exactly,
attention,
wow,
because oftentimes those voices don't go away,
mm,
Right.
and they may begin to overpower your voice of influence
in the
in
marriage,
your relationship.
yeah, wow, wow. Wow, that's a good one. Trouble's coming, so watch out for that one if you're not watching out for that. Eric, do you have anything like for men? Because I'm curious as to what a man from a
I,
male's perspective.
I always try to gauge where men are at, understanding that they're going to be held responsible for this marriage.
Mm,
As the head of the household, doesn't mean they're smarter, better, anything else, but God's going to hold them accountable for their marriage. Do they understand what that means to be accountable? So that means, are you willing to take the high road when something happens? Are you willing to do the right thing? Are you willing to say, I'm sorry first?
mm,
What things are you willing to do as a man? And so I try to gauge where they are on that level of understanding their manhood and their position as the husband
mm,
or future husband. Do you understand what that means? Do you understand
yeah,
that that you're supposed to lay down your life for this woman? Are you willing to do that? Are you willing to sacrifice?
Right.
And so gauging where they are on that plane there tells me a whole lot about, maybe where they need to get to before they need to move any further.
Exactly. And I think something that you guys are saying is important too, is that a lot of these things doesn't mean you're not going to get married. It just means you need to wait and kind of work on it.
Yes.
Because a lot of times, especially when it comes to marriage, because I talk about in one of my books how we just create this picture perfect puzzle piece person that's going to fit in our lives so great. And when we do that, it makes us very, very eager to have it. Because to us, it's like, what's the holdup? Like, this is what we need.
Right.
But a lot of the time, we need to actually grow into that role. We need to take our time and be prepared for that and understand that we're not going to get like a perfect spouse or somebody who's going to fit in our life so great, because even people think like if God sends you somebody, the person's going to be perfect. No, there's no perfect people. If you get somebody...
Say that again for the people in the back.
Yeah.
Say that one more time.
Yeah. And so you have to be prepared for what's coming instead of just looking at it. And so I really like that you guys are saying this is not, no, you can't get married. This is, you need more time to prepare to be married. And so, yeah, so because, I remember being single. I've been married for a while, but I remember being single and how eager I was and the things that you think like that. And sometimes you just need to slow down a little bit. Yeah.
So true.
Yeah.
So true.
Yeah.
And then we also try to gauge their level of understanding of what commitment is. Are you really committed to make this work?
Yeah.
Are you willing to do whatever it takes? Are you committed? And we always share what our pastor used to say about commitment. Commitment is like being on an airplane and you put on a parachute and you jump out that plane. You're committed. Whether that parachute opens or closes, you're committed. You're going down. Are you committed to make this marriage work? Whether things happen good or bad, are you committed? Right. And so we try to understand their level of commitment, and do they understand what commitment means? This is for the long haul. This is not for, until I'm mad and I go my way, you go yours.
Right.
Are you really committed?
That means divorce is not an option. So I don't come into this in the back of my mind thinking, well,
if it doesn't work out,
we'll
still be friends, but we're going to go our different.
Right. We'll just get a divorce.
Yeah. Yeah.
No. Commitment is, divorce is not an option. We're going to figure a way. We're going to work it out. We're going to let the word of God, for those that are Christ followers, we're going to let the word of God be our absolute standard, and our opinions and perspectives and all of that. We're going to get together and we're going to bring those in line with the word, and we're going to do that together.
And if that means getting some counseling or some coaching while you're married, do it. It's worth it. The value is worth it to make this thing work. And so
exactly. Wow, this is good. So, what other things do you guys, because we're getting close to the end here, so I just want to make sure I give you guys time to address your biggest points that you like to bring out for people when they're trying to get prepared for marriage. So you talked about expectations, and then you talked about, I'm sorry, my mouth is getting a little bit dry from talking. I forgot to get my water. And then the second point you made was about
being on the same page spiritually.
Yeah, sorry. We're talking about a lot. So so is there anything else that you guys like?
Yes.
The
biggest thing for me, and one of the things I think really helped us, we would have, even before we were married, we would have a vision day. And the vision day is where we get alone, go somewhere where there's a library or go on a picnic, but we map out what are the things we want to do in our life. What is the vision I have for myself? What is the vision Courtney has for herself? What is the vision we have for things, doing it together? So we want to, draw those things out, write those things down, do a vision board, whatever it takes. But we have a vision day where we talk about what are our financial goals? What are our career goals? What do we want to, how involved do we want to be in the church, in the ministry? For our family, what is our vision for our family? And so we every year we'll go through that and try to rehash and see if we need to tweak things or change course. But having a vision day, and we would journal those things, write those things down so we can gauge and see, are we pursuing that? What is Courtney's dreams and how can I help her? Right. What are my goals and how can she help me? What are the things the Lord has us doing together that, we want to be on the same page? Because oftentimes we see couples get married and after the kids are gone, they're on different pages. There's two different visions. There's division. And so you want to stay unified so that you're doing something together. Why did the Lord bring you two together?
Exactly.
What was his purpose in that? So we really stress having some kind of vision day or some time where you really brainstorm and dream big of the things you want to accomplish as a couple.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Because
Wow.
each of you individually has a God assignment, right?
Mhm.
But there's a reason that God put you and your spouse together, because there's something that you can only accomplish
Together.
with this person, right? Together.
Right.
And I also believe that, individuals have purposes, couples have purposes, the family unit has a purpose, and so on. Every organization, God puts it together for a particular purpose. And we call it Vision Day. You can call it dream building or whatever it is. It doesn't have to be a full day if it's just 3 hours.
Right.
But what it does require is that you get away so that you can have uninterrupted time to just cast the vision, look back and see, what we said we wanted to do. Have we done those things? If not, why not? Is it no longer a priority? Do we feel God kind of shifting some things and, priorities shifting down? What we thought was top priority, maybe not so much. And then look forward based on what we believe the Lord is saying. Here's some things we feel led to do in the upcoming 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, whatever it is. And just take some time to do that and do the things that energize you both in that time. Now, of course, if you want to make it a weekend thing, that's, hey,
Right.
I'm all for that. Couples get away and just,
Right.
have that Vision Day aspect be a part of it. Doesn't have to be the whole weekend. However, how it works for you. But yes, we strongly recommend that couples do that.
Wow. Wow. So like what you guys are saying, it sounds like something that you would do when you're married also, but you're saying that people should do this like before they get married too, to kind of like create a vision for their relationship, like before they get married.
Yeah, we started when we were engaged.
Yep.
Wow.
Just so we can begin to, dream, what do we want to do when we're married, and what are some of the goals that we have?
Yeah.
I want to hear her dreams. What does she want to do in life? What's her goal? I don't want to just say it's all about me. It's not all about me. It's about us, about you, me, and us together. So I want to make sure I could understand what those things were, so that I can pray about them, be helpful however I can, and so that God can do what He wants to do.
One of the things that we did was we kept a journal, and sometimes we were writing to each other, and other times we were just writing our own thoughts. And we would write, one of us would keep it for a couple days, a week or whatever, and we would write whatever we needed to write during that time. And then we would pass it over to the other person.
So this is before we're married.
This was before we were married.
Living together,
Wow.
And so we still have those. Now, we haven't written them in a while, but I think we have 2 volumes that go back to when we first met back in the mid 90s. And it's kind of cool when we have our Vision Day, pull out those journals and see what did we write to each other? What were we praying about at the time? What were some of our dreams, some of our fears? It's really cool to look back and see answered prayer. Yeah. It's so that's cool. So I love journaling. I don't do it as much as I would really like to, but I'm a strong proponent of journaling, and I think that's a great way for a couple that is engaged or they're serious about getting married. I think that's a great way to just continue to get to know each other.
Wow. I mean, I'm a writer, so journaling.
Yeah.
And like a few years ago, I ended up destroying a journal that I had from 15 years old. It probably was like over 1,000 pages. So I've been writing like my whole entire life. So that whole journaling idea just really piqued my interest. I mean, I journal, but I've never like included my husband in my journaling. So now you guys have given me something to about what we've done here. But wow, that's really nice. I can see that being a very, very intimate kind of thing between you and your partner to be able to share something like that. So absolutely. I mean, I have written stuff and kind of left it around the house and like oh, did you find
you didn't happen to read that, did you?
It's like, oops, I was looking for that. So, wow, that sounds very, very sweet. So And so we have about 5 more minutes here. I'm not sure if you guys, I don't want to rush you through your other points because I know when it comes to marriage, the list is really long. So I know this is only like a very small piece of some of the ways that you could prepare. But is there anything else you kind of you feel like is worth mentioning that maybe is quick and it won't, take too much time since we only have 5 minutes left?
You good?
I think ending on that Vision Day note, I think that really is the ultimate. That and the journaling to each other. I think that's really
huge.
that's powerful. Yeah. So if
Wow.
anybody wants to get more information about that, you can tell them how to get in touch with us.
Yeah, and so that's actually how I usually try to wrap up, is just let people know you guys are. Can you say how you do your title again? Marriage preparation. How do you say it? Okay,
marriage preparation or marriage readiness coaching.
Marriage readiness coaching, and you guys have your you have a Facebook page, I believe. Do you have a website?
There is a website, stayinloveforlife.com.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, and I will post the links for those underneath the comments in this video if you guys are interested in reaching out to them and maybe taking them up on some marriage readiness coaching, because we all could use it. Even people who are married, we need coaching too. So it's like you said, Eric, everybody the greats have had coaches, and we all need help. So nobody is exempt from getting help. And help that comes from the heart, especially from the Bible and from wisdom, is exactly the type of help that we all need. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. This was a really good conversation. I'm so happy to even reconnect with you guys after so much time. And I really hope God uses this video to help some people who are trying to get ready for marriage or not sure what to do, or maybe even need to prepare in a different way than they have been preparing. And so I really hope this video is a blessing to whoever watches it. But
that's our prayer too.
Yep. Thanks for having us, and say hello to your husband,
please.
Oh, no problem. Will do. And you guys be great. And until next time.
Until next time.
Right.
Take care.
Take care.
No problem. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.